Hey guys, Ken here from Backpacking Light, and today I'm recording from our nice little shop, warm inside here in Umeå, Sweden. Got some Soulo winter tents by Hilleberg that are fairly popular that we sell quite a bit of, and I wanted to go through the two most popular, I guess I should say three. I'll go grab the Octo here soon, but you have the Hilleberg Suolo. This weighs 2 kilos trail weight, and it has a nice vestibule. And the tent I'm sitting in is the Hilleberg Unna, which is also 2 kilos, but no real vestibule, but instead you get a much bigger tent. Now if you look at the Unna, and I would say the Octo as well, but honestly, I'm not a huge fan of the Octo on winter trips, just because it's really tight inner tent, and when it gets condensation, it gets on your face, and it's a different staking process. It's not freestanding like the Unna and Suolo, but it is lighter and more robust, and you could you could easily use it as a summer tent as well, without it being too heavy. But for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to stick with the Suolo and the Unna, and I'll probably set up the Suolo as well so that you can kind of see the differences side by side. But right now I'm sitting inside the Unna, and I just kind of want to give my own take on the Unna compared to the Suolo, and then I'll show kind of the differences between them. But you can see they're basically the same size, with the Unna being a little bit bigger packing. The biggest difference between these, of course, is that the Unna has a much larger living area, but basically no vestibule, while the Suolo has a much smaller living area, but has a little vestibule. Personally, what I found is I actually prefer the Unna, as it's just a much larger, more comfortable tent, and even for tall people, it works so well. And I can kind of show that if I just get in here, and yeah, got the unbound there. Take that out just so you can see me in the video a little better. So for reference, I'm 190 centimeters tall. It's about 6'3", and I'm a pretty wide person, and this tent is a very comfortable solo tent. Now, of course you'd say, well, yeah, but I don't have a vestibule in winter. I want a vestibule, but I mean, not really. Not the most important thing. I mean, you can bring your gear in with you, and you can even, I've seen a lot of people where they open up, they take these two sides out here, and then that gives them a bit like an actual vestibule that they can put their stuff in. There's like a little hook here. It's real simple. It's just 2 hooks, and then you've got yourself a nice sized vestibule. Now this tent minimal weight is 2 kilos for most of those trips, just because it requires a lot more volume in the gear that you're bringing with you. Now, where I would say the Unna is spades ahead of something like the Suolo is that it's both bigger. The inner tent is much bigger. You can make a vestibule in it, but above all else, you can actually use this in the summer as a 2-man tent, as it is big enough for 2 sleeping pads. And I've seen a lot of 2-man ultralight tents that have a smaller living space than this one does. So that is definitely a big bonus, but it's just something to think about. As I said, the packing size and weight are almost identical on the Suolo and the Unna. Quality, of course, Hilleberg is always top-notch. You can see them up close with each other. But here you can see the Soulo has a bit more, I should say, vestibule space if you need that. It does withstand heavy winds probably better than what the Unna does, but it is sacrificed at at the size. And you know, like I said, I've used the Unna and I've used the Unna too, and these kind of tents in heavy winds and snows in the winter, and they've been just fine. And these tents are built more specifically for those kind of trips. But anyway, so the Suolo is considerably smaller inner, but then you have a bit more weather protection, I guess, because you have a better vestibule here. So even in heavy rains, you're not going to get wet on the inner tent. So that's one of the bigger differences. It's a bit rougher to set up. What I mean by rougher is that it's a bit more of a pain to set up, just because you have these external clips and you got 3 poles instead of 2 that run through channels. But I'll go ahead and put in the same sleeping mat so that you can kind of see. If I could just turn this other tent so that we can, maybe we can see both like that. Or maybe not. Let's see. Okay. So here, again, much larger inner tent space. Just all around more of like a rectangle as compared to in the Suolo. I'll go ahead and put the same sleeping mat in the... Oh, okay. Yeah, so the Soulo is just a proper solo tent. And if you're gonna do like a proper winter expedition, by yourself, and you don't need the tent for anything else, then yeah, I mean the Suolo is probably the one you're going to want to go with. But if you want more room and more comfort, easier to set up, and that's probably still going to be good enough for just about any winter adventure, or even summer for that matter, then I would probably say the Unna for that. Just because you have more living space. The Soulo, you can see, I mean, it's still, if you're like me, 190, you're still going to be just fine in it, probably up to 192, 193. But you don't have much space in the tent. It's basically just your sleeping mat and a little cubby beside, but you get the vestibule instead. It still has all the top ventilation like the Unna has. So you're going to be fine with ventilation. It's freestanding like the Unna. The biggest difference is that it's a bit smaller. On the inner, it's a little bit more difficult to set up, especially when you're cold. But you do get the vestibule and better winter and snow protection. I don't know if you get better snow protection, but you get better wind protection maybe, as it's 3 poles. The Unna, it's just the 2 channels and you're done, and you get a much bigger tent. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit in trying to choose between the Unna or the Suolo, or even the Octo or the Alak. A lot of solo hikers actually opt for the Alak too, because then you get a much bigger tent, freestanding, with the 2 vestibules, 2 entry and exits. And that's actually a very popular tent for a lot of winter hikers. But it's not something you'd really want to bring with you on a summer hike. And then that's where I think the Unna kind of has the advantage over both the tents, is that it is big enough for 2 sleeping mats for summer use. It's a big, easy tent to set up and makes for a great winter tent for solo adventure. Yeah, so Ken here from Backpacking Light. Hope you enjoy this little review and comparison. Cheers.